this like a different lifetime ago, it seems like. The first time I interviewed you, but
that was a long time ago.
Yeah. So if I remember right, you did not grow up in the church. So
no.
What led you to this point?
What brought me to being a Christian was I was working at Allison Gas Turbine, which is a factory down in Indianapolis, division of General Motors. And while I was there working, it just so happens that a guy that was working in the area, and if any of you have worked in a workplace, you know what I'm talking about. People play practical jokes on each other. And there was a guy there by the name of George Wells, and his practical joke that he always played around with people was he had a pea shooter that he would, hit you from, this guy could, back there at Jerry, he could stand here and shoot a pea shooter, and he could actually call which ear he was going to hit you in. Okay, he was that good with it, and he wound up hitting me with a pea shooter when I moved into the area on the job. And not being a Christian, I was very upset, and I said, I'm going to go clean the clock of whoever's doing this. And so I went over there to really start basically getting in a fight with whoever this was, and went over there, and not being a Christian, I didn't use very good language talking to him. And he just sit there and looked at me real funny, and he says, "You're not a Christian, are you?" Talk about stopped in the middle of your tracks. I was kind of like, what's that got to do with anything that, I want to do here? And he said, well, I could tell by the way that you're talking and the way you're acting, you're not a Christian. How would you like to be one? Okay, so it just kind of snowballed from there. So it was, as I tell kids when I go around to church camp and stuff, I can probably say I'm the only person who was converted by a pea shooter.
Which ear did he hit?
This one.
Okay.
The one I can't hear out of anymore.
I was just going to say, is that what led you into the
deaf ministries?
Deaf ministries there. But so you became a Christian, and then did the church have a deaf ministry, or what happened there?
No, later on, about a year later, they wound up doing a deaf ministry. There was a deaf young man that was coming to church. He didn't know, the church didn't know what to do. And I'm going to be a name dropper here. Vera Mushrush, how many of you know? Okay. Vera Mushrush was his Sunday school teacher, and he was going to be going out of her class to another class. So she said, well, somebody's got to be able to interpret and do things for him. So she started a sign language class in conjunction with Deaf Institute through Cecil Bennett at the time. And they came up and did a sign language class, and I just took it for the fun of it. Not being a Christian, growing up in a non-Christian home, when I came back to share my faith with my family, they said, "You're one of them Jesus freak nuts, and we don't want anything to do with you." So I was really ostracized by my entire family. So I tried to be involved in the church. And when Vera went forward to make the announcement, we're going to have sign language on Tuesday nights, I said, good, I don't have to go home. I'll take sign language. And then it was just like 10 hours of doing that, and I was interpreting in church.
Wait a minute here. So it was you volunteered so you didn't have to go home?
Absolutely. That was the only reason.
So now you go to different countries so you don't have to go home? Is that what happens, Jackie? Let's see.
Yeah, I'm glad for the counseling I'm getting here. Love you too, brother. The thing of it is that after Jackie and I had gotten married, of course, she got into this sign language stuff, and it's not her gift. But after doing this and being involved in the church, becoming a deacon on the missions committee and stuff of this nature, Tom Morris was a missionary that we supported, and all the stories and stuff we knew of the Morrises. I said, being on the missions committee, I want to see what God is doing different than what he's doing in the States. It just sounds so much different of what is going on. So I took a month off of work. And we bought tickets and we went to Thailand to see the mission field, just to get the experience of it. Well, God had a bit of a different idea, because we got there at 2:00 in the morning, and then later on that day we went out to eat. And guess what was in front of where we went to eat? Some deaf guys selling trinkets there in Thailand. And so they were standing out there signing, and we were waiting for a place to be able to go in to eat with Tom and Debbie and our kids and stuff. And I started watching what was going on and going, okay. Next thing I know, they're going there eating, and I'm sitting out here going, okay. And I'm sitting there with these guys, signing with them. And finally, they come out to get me and said, hey, we got a place to eat, get in here. So I said, hey, guys, I got to go leave. And they said, how did you learn Thai Sign Language? How long have you been here in the country? I said, about 4 hours. And I had been sitting there, and I was signing to them in Thai Sign Language. So it was kind of like God said, hey, and that's how that started.
But how close is that to the American Sign Language or whatever you learned from Vera?
I said, about that much difference. About as different as the language is in itself. It's a complete different sign language. There are some similarities. There's some signs that are the same. The meaning is different. Some signs are the same, and the meaning is the same. But I would have to sit here and say about 80 to 85% of the signs are completely different.
So when you first learned American Sign Language, were you then like at the top of your class? Were you that one that threw the whole curve off when it came to grading?
Yeah. There was me, and there was everybody else in the class. Yeah. And Vera was, I was past Vera in a matter of a few months of her ability to sign and stuff. It was just a gift of God. I really do believe that when you become a Christian, God gives you a gift, and it is something that's not natural to you. And that was the gift that I believe that he gave me, because it hasn't mattered whether I was in Colombia, Thailand, Egypt, or any of the other different countries I've been in. I can't explain it other than sit there and say, I watch it and I got it.
Are any of them, do they have like similar movements for something, so that it's, you get a feeling for that language based on the hand movements?
The way that I have figured it out in the places that I have been is you see, sign language is a language that's built for the eyes and not the ears. So it is a language, because it is visual, that has its own specific rules. Rules are, you can't see things outside of chronological order. I can't see things before they happen, and after they've happened, I can't re-see them. So so far as the language and the way they structure and the way they think is fairly universal. So if I understand, okay, there's a sentence pattern here of what he's trying to say, and I know where the terms belong in. I know where the subject needs to be. I know where the time sequence needs to be. I know where the adjectives need to be. All I have to do then is figure out how they sign what they're trying to say. So I don't have to rethink my sentence patterns, which is what happens most of the time when you pick up another vocal language. Structuring my Thai vocalization is different than here, and the Spanish is different. You don't say house red house, all this stuff. So if that is the same, it's easier then to pick up the sign for the terms. Personally, so that's what happens, I know for myself.
So how many sign languages do you speak right now?
I don't speak any, but I sign a few. Stepped into that one, didn't you?
Do you want the second microphone here too?
Pull the plug on that bad boy. So I was up to, I think it was 5 or 6 sign languages. Different sign languages that I picked up: Colombian, Thai, Filipino, Singaporean, a little bit of Australian, and some Malay.
Okay. So where currently are you working?
Currently, because of COVID for the last 2 years, we weren't I kind of say we weren't able to travel. That's kind of a misnomer, as you've heard some of the other people talk. You could fly, but it wasn't economical. The cost of the tickets were doubled. And then on top of that, if I flew into Thailand, I had to stay 7 days at a hotel of their choice with my paying for it. And then after 7 days, then I was actually allowed to get outside of the hotel and do whatever we had to. So you had to add that 7 days onto there. And then if you came back to the United States, you were still in a 7-day quarantine. So if I was to spend 2 weeks in Thailand, it took 4 weeks just to make a 2-week trip, plus the extra expenses, and so it wasn't worth it. And then they told us, well, if you get the vaccine, you can go. And that didn't work out well either. So what has happened is I did a lot more stuff through video chat and things of this nature for the last couple of years. And then basically a church down the road recently, I've been helping them doing interim stuff. So I've been interim preaching for the last few months and helping that church out as they're possibly looking for a new minister. So, and I'm enjoying that because I preach to them like they're deaf.
Okay, now, wait a minute. You said...
Easy there.
You said video chat. So where's the chat part when you're sign languaging?
Well, since it's a video, what you can do is you just sign back and forth to them and stuff of this nature. Really.
But where's the chat?
Right
Didn't
here.
chat the speaking?
Really, we've been, I know here in the United States, you guys have done, like FaceTime and stuff for the last several years. We've been doing it in Thailand since early 2000s. The Thai government I know of down there, and in Colombia, some of it is the same way, is that the deaf people approached the government and said, we can't use phones unless we can use the video part. So in Thailand, they subsidize the deaf people to get a video phone so that they can sign and talk. I know when we were the missionaries here for the camp last year, a lot of times when we weren't teaching kids, Pongsak and I were there up there in the hall doing video stuff and teaching counseling and to deaf people in different countries around the world. So,
okay. So do they have good enough internet so it doesn't you have to stop and they're frozen until it...
You do that. Sometimes you lose the signal. Sometimes you have a good signal. Sometimes they may have to travel a ways to get to an internet cafe so that you can do some video chatting and stuff. But we at least can text back and forth and make the appointments to do some things of that nature too. Either that or through email, they'll say this day, this time, and then you know what's going on.
Okay. So are you still then working in Thailand or Burma or?
In Thailand, still quite a bit of stuff specifically. Because we were the missionaries here last year, the funding that we were able to get for the summer, was able to update all of our video equipment in Thailand, which hadn't been done in like 10 years. So it was so old, you couldn't get the computers and the video stuff to coordinate. And since Pongsak took that back last year, they have already produced 62 new videos of Christian teaching and stuff that is free on the internet there in Thailand. And then we've got the camera there now for the church services that is at the First Church in Chiang Mai that now is being broadcast every Sunday through sign language and stuff of that nature. So we've been able to step out and help the deaf, even if it's not there. Brandon just showed the video and stuff. One of the things about video, I don't know if you guys really ever thought about it or not, but video, so far as with the deaf or anything else like that, makes you omnipresent. I can be in multiple places at the same time. Video, okay? Because it's there, they can see it and watch it when they want to, when it's free, when it's convenient for them. So all of our video stuff that we have out there is all free and things of this nature. So utilizing the internet and what we can with video is a real godsend so far as ministries, especially with the deaf.
So do you still do work in like Colombia or, let's see, where else did you say?
Myanmar, Africa, Egypt, and stuff of this thing. We still have some stuff that's going on down there in Colombia. The last thing that we are doing now is there is a church in Bogota, in the Suba Church, that we have been paying for people to take the sign language class, the FINESCO, which is their government-sanctioned deaf training stuff, to be able to do a new deaf ministry there in Bogota again, in a completely different area than what we'd done before. It's all the other end of town. So with Bogota, just like Chiang Mai, with Bogota being so big, there's about 12, 14 million people in Bogota. It can take you hours to get, like 2 or 3 kilometers, sometimes in public transportation. So you really need to have these places in different locations to make it easier for the deaf to have access to a church and worship, which is what we did there in Chiang Mai. It's a town, like Jeff said, of about 1.2 million people. And again, depending on traffic and the situation, you could spend an hour getting from this side of town or more to the other side. So there's actually deaf churches on all 4 corners of town. So, which makes it a lot easier for the deaf to have accessibility to whichever one that they can attend at that Sunday.
So when you start these deaf ministries, do you find that you're reaching primarily unchurched or churched, that just the deaf person has not been able to have much understanding, or a combination of both?
We have always concentrated on the unchurched. I really don't like it when people take our members, so I won't take members from them. Do unto your brother. But there wasn't really, when we started off in Chiang Mai or in Thailand, there wasn't anybody else doing deaf ministry, so we didn't have to worry about that at all. It was reaching out to unreached deaf people that didn't know anything about the gospel at all. And the same with what we did there in Colombia also. There wasn't much of anything going on. There was a little bit of stuff in Bogota, but we did it in Villavicencio and on the other end of town in Bogota than some other people have been doing. So we have always had our guys, I've always told them, you're going for people that have never heard the gospel. That's the people we're concentrating on, and that's what we want you to do.
Yeah, I was thinking more about like a son or a daughter that's been going to church with parents that didn't have any way to communicate.
Right.
Are churches bringing interpreters into those churches, or do those people tend to find a church where it's all deaf?
Well, deaf are intermingled within the society and stuff. And so one of the things, same thing we did in Thailand, is if you have a church that's interested to reach out to the deaf, or they have some deaf coming, then you start to work with that church. And a lot of times you have to start off with interpreted services. That's not the goal. Our goal is to have actually deaf services, whether deaf leadership, deaf preacher, deaf services, culturally relevant. But we have stressed to have that a church within a church ideology, because what happens is 95% of deaf kids are born to both parents being hearing, and 95% of their kids will be hearing. So you have this dichotomy of deaf people with hearing parents and hearing kids. Well, if you only was to have a deaf church, where are they going to worship? They can't worship as a family. But if you have a church within a church ideology, then they can go over here for their deaf worship, and their parents and siblings can go over here with hearing people that are culturally relevant to them. So we've always tried to do that kind of a church within a church idea.
So would they both have a service going on at different time, or at the same time in different parts, or different times in the same facility?
We've always tried to have the same worship thing at the same times. I know they do at Western Hills down there and stuff. And actually, at the church that I'm doing the interim ministry in, with some people that Brian and Pam know, Corey Stapp, and I don't remember his wife's name, Sarah. the church that I'm doing interim stuff in August, the first Sunday in August, which is a week from this Sunday, I do believe, we're going to be having a deaf church service in the evenings, and we have an evening worship service at the same time. So over here, it's an FEC Family Center, Life Center, whatever you want to call it. We will be having hearing services, and over there in that Sunday school classroom, which is a big classroom, they will be doing deaf church services. So if the kids want to come in here with us or the children's ministry stuff, they can do that. Parents can be over here. However you work it, everybody gets to worship the one true God together, separately, culturally relevant.
So how often do you get to Thailand or Colombia then?
I haven't been. Colombia, Bob and I. Is Bob in here today? I know he was up. Yeah, there's Bob. We were there in February with Brother Dell. It was the last time that I've been down there. And then in Thailand, because I'm interim helping with the church and stuff, I'm not going to wasn't able to get anything worked out this year, but we'll be going back again next year. And then hopefully, if all the prayers go well, we'll have Pongsak back here in the States again. As long as his visa keeps being renewed, we're going to keep bringing the guy back.
So then do you get a hankering for the Colombian food or the Thai food when you're away from it?
The Thai food. We still make our own Thai food. Jackie refuses to let me cook it in the house. The stuff I like. Because it's
like the monkey brains or something like that?
Monkey brains, lizard guts and stuff like no, just some of the stuff that I like that they make in Thailand is a lot of peppers or a lot of spices that when it hits the flames, it makes everybody sneeze, gag, or anything else. I love it. So I cook it outside, and then generally I'll try to eat it on the back patio even. And stuff, but I have my Thai food withdrawals. Not as much the Colombian food. Colombian food is not like Mexican food. It's boring, right, Bob? It's really not all that flavorful of anything. It's really very much kind of European. Blah.
What I got from that is when you cook at home, you're used to making people sick. Is that what you were saying?
I mean, If you're not gagging or burning or sweating, it ain't any good, brother.
Yeah.
So,
are there any questions from anybody out there? Yeah.
Dwayne, do you have a cookbook? It sounds great to me.
Oh yeah, do I have a cookbook? It sounds great to him. We do at the house. We do have a couple of cookbooks. And my only complaint about Thailand cookbooks is they're going for the American market, so they Americanize it. No, I just cook it. It's like, everybody, it's like you talk to any good, chef and say, what goes in it? This, that, this, or how much? This much, that much. I don't measure the stuff out. I just start throwing it in until it tastes right. Oh, you come to Lake James to learn? Okay, so we're going to have a cooking class one of these days. Now, I wouldn't mind it. We were up here for the summer, this last summer. Kapoksak and I cooked Thai food for the staff, and they really enjoyed it. And I think Mary and Jeff cooked some Thai stuff for the staff and stuff this year. It's hard to cook for all the campers unless you had a really small group, because we're not used to cooking for 75 people or whatever, but just to show you how to make something. Yeah, I guess if they really wanted us to do that sometime, we could come up here and I could gag you guys. That's not a problem. Right, Mary? We can sweat, gag, sneeze. We can do it all. Yes, I seen another hand. Yeah.
So do you use different languages, sign language, for evangelism and discipleship, or is it only in the church that you're using it?
Thailand was way different beast, animal, however you want to call it, because when we got to Thailand, there was no religious vocabulary within the deaf community because there wasn't even any Buddhist vocabulary. And I could go into a lot of explanation about Buddhism and handicapped people. But so what had to happen was within the community, we got PBT people here, Wycliffe translators, Bible translators, nobody here? There's a way that you have to help people develop their language to communicate concepts that are not natural to their spoken everyday language or everyday sign language. So I worked with SIL and PBT people of how do you do that? So basically what you have to do is you have to explain the concept, and then they develop a sign to communicate that concept. What I really stressed with our guys is they were developing their sign language to communicate religious concepts is try to use something that is culturally relevant, hand shapes, motions and stuff, that would open the door to where if somebody saw this new sign, they would kind of like, can you explain that to me? Oh, yeah, we can do that. And a lot of it was, it ties comku in English. It's a compound word where you would take, two words together to create it. So like the sign that they had for God was basically Father in heaven. They used the Thai word or the Thai sign for Father, and they used the Thai sign for heaven. In their culture, they would never put those two side by side. But so as soon as our guys would put those two side by side, everybody, huh? Wait a minute, back the truck up here. Explain this. We've never seen this side by side. Open door.
So would the two words be like Father Sky?
No, they had a sign for heaven, and they had a sign for Father. So it was their Father that was in heaven, or some. So that was basically it. Our Father is up there in heaven. And so they did the same thing for. So they did this. Of course, we got American signers up here. They come up with a sign for repent, which is changing of the heart. It's this way, it went that way. Confession, they had a sign for confession, which is, so I'm not only going to confess what my heart, what I did physically, but I'm going to confess my sins that I did mentally. I'm giving them to God. So they had a visual way of communicating that it created the curiosity, even in the unchurched, to want to understand, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Any other questions? So,
boy, I did a good job.
You certainly did. So, does Jackie like your cooking or the Thailand Thai cooking better?
Her cooking or Thailand cooking? You'd have to ask her that one.
Well, I thought you would know by whether or not she eats it.
She doesn't eat what I cook. She can't handle what I cook because it's basically, if you're not sweating, it ain't any good. I have a lot of the Thai guys. Pongsak won't eat the way I cook some of it. He says it's too hot for him. So some of the Thai people say, we're not eating what Dwayne does. So, but I like the real. I have just enjoyed a taste explosion when you put it in there. There is something that goes, wow, that was cool. Yeah. Hot in, hot out. No problems.
So
you get to enjoy it twice, Paul.
Oh, yeah. I'm moving off onto another subject here.
Well, you was talking about movement, so
yeah. But so do you have like then video conferences too then that you can do from here in the States and get a hold of some of the deaf in Thailand or in Colombia?
Yeah, because of the video stuff through Facebook video, we talk with the guys. Just a couple of months ago, I was talking to them in Colombia again. With Pongsak and the guys in Thailand, get on there on a regular basis and sit there and say, okay, what's going on, what's happening, what do we need to be aware of, and things of this nature. Yeah, so you can't really pull a couple of 2 or 3 different countries up there at the same time and do it because they each have their own sign language. But you can go back and forth, and sometimes they will communicate back and forth. Pongsak knows about 7 different sign languages, in the different places. He knows Korean, Thai, Chinese, Lao, Singapore, U.S., and I think one or two others. Colombian, yeah. And Thai, naturally.
Well, that's an interesting thing, though. So, like China, there's the Cantonese and then Mandarin. So, are there different sign languages, or is that more universal through the Chinese?
But actually, even if you talk to Brian Pam, you have dialectic differences in the United States. I learned to sign in Indiana, and I went to Bible college in North Carolina. Okay, in North Carolina, they don't talk the same way we do up here. In North Carolina, they don't sign the same way we do up here. There's a lot of the similarities, but there's still that dialectic uniqueness. Each deaf school has its uniqueness to it and the way that they will sign. So even in Thailand, a lot of what I did was signing up in northern Thailand. When I went to central Thailand, I would have to change some signs and things. When I went to LJSOM, when I went to southern Thailand, and there again, each deaf school would be unique. So you would have to, it kind of signifies where they're from, gives them their identity of, I went to this deaf school. So even in China, depending on where they're at, they're going to have their own local flavor to things. And sometimes it takes a while to figure it out.
So then in sign language, it's the hands that have the accent and not the voice.
Yeah, and facial expressions of how they will use the facial expression to change some of the stuff too. So it's more than the hands, body movement back and forth, side to side, facial expressions. It is a body language. It's not just the hands.
So how well are the deaf churches growing in these different areas that you work?
Let's see, who was it that was here? They was talking the other day about how do you measure church growth? Was it Jeff? Yeah, it was Jeff talking about church growth. He was an MK under Thailand, so he listened to me a couple of times. I don't measure church growth by numbers. I measure church growth by spiritual depth. Like I sit here and say, Pongsak has a high school diploma that says illiterate, but I will put him up probably against 75% of the preachers here in the United States on his biblical doctrine. The guy, we worked really, really hard on the doctrine and the Bible and focusing on that, and it doesn't make any difference. If somebody comes up and they start talking to Pongsak about what's in the Bible, and a lot of these guys in Thailand, first thing they say is, where's it at? Show it to me. Prove it. And that right there shows you their spiritual depth is they don't take just anything that somebody says. We've always said, you're going to say something, you show it to me. If you can't show it to me, it's just your opinion. So we've always worked really, really hard on that. So I see a lot of good spiritual growth that's in them and stuff like that. The numbers will come as numbers come. And none of our churches are all that big because it's not like you have thousands and thousands of deaf people to pull from. You have a smaller community to pull from.
So do most of the deaf then, are they able to read their native written language?
I'm going to get in trouble here, and I'm going to say no. Written language is written language. Remember I said deaf language it has its own grammar, syntax, word order, everything else. So if a deaf person picks up a book, they're having to mentally sign it as they read the words. Mentally, that's what they're doing. And then restructure it and put it back in the right syntax order. So it's a lot of hoops that you go through to do that. Just like if I pick up a Thai Bible and I read a Thai Bible, you for a long period of time, I can stay in the Thai and know what's going on. But it takes years and years and years of practice to do that. So in a lot of these other countries, biblical language isn't the same language you talk on the street. And it isn't in our Bibles. We've worked really, really hard to break the language down for people to understand it better. So that makes that extra hurdle that you have to go on. So a lot of deaf people in a lot of the different countries around the world, and there's even that difficulty here in America, just to pick up the Bible, read it, and then if you ask them, now sign back to me what it was you read, you'd be surprised a lot of times at what you wind up getting back, right, guys? So it can be really, really difficult. Oh, well, we'll just give them a Bible and they'll be okay. They can read that. No.
And I'm going to guess that there's probably no written hand Bible, because how do you put the movements in?
Right. Sign language is 3-dimensional, and a page is 1-dimensional papers. Well, basically it is 1-dimensional. Now, what they have done is the Bible has been it's finished in ASL. It's completely finished. So if the deaf want the Bible in American Sign Language, they have access to it on the internet and all this other stuff. But so far, it's the only sign language of the world that has the complete Bible in its language.
Well, that's interesting. How do they find chapter and verse then?
Or the Bible sign, yeah, Pam's going to pull it up there. You can go chapter and verse, and it's categorized there to where you can hit that, and then it will just start signing that.
It's not chapter and verse, it's chapter and like a paragraph, because it's broken down conceptually.
Yeah, you have to keep the thought going.
Maybe 3 verses or 5 verses together, but it tells you exactly where those verses are.
Right. Paul has a tendency to have run-on sentences. Kind of like the way I write. My wife says, "Do you know what a period is?" "Oh, yeah, I'll put it here at the end." Paragraph indentations. That's why I work well with deaf. I don't have to worry about that stuff. So just show you there. So you can sit there and find specific things you want to in the scriptures. And in your deaf churches, a lot of times they will do that, and then it'll be projected up there. So like if we're doing a sermon, like I do a sermon or something, I will put the words up there for my PowerPoint. The deaf would then sit there and they would hit that, and then that would just show up on the screen. They just sit there and watch that and say, "Oh, okay, now I got it." So that's what makes it that way.
I use it for devotions every night.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll eventually, but anyway, we can probably pop it up at some point.
Yeah, sometime here we can sit there and put some up here on the screen so you guys can kind of see what the Bible in sign language looks like.
Okay, so then I guess another question for me is that the cell phones, I mean, if you've got those fancy ones and not the flip phone
Not a
like
flip
I
phone.
have, that you can call, but then how does that work? Can't necessarily hold the phone while you're talking to somebody. And how do the deaf know it's a ringing? Is it like a really good vibrate that they have?
Yeah. I mean, they just pretty much have it on vibration, and they're you've psychologically or subconsciously trained yourself to feel all that and stuff. Now, like I said, Pongsock was here last year. I know some of the kids that were probably around. You would see. You just go ahead and sign one-handed. Now, if you're getting into a real serious discussion, a lot of times you will find someplace, set the thing down, back up, and sign using both hands. But a lot of the simple conversations or things that they do, they'll just put it out and sign. You can pretty much figure out what the other hand would be doing and stuff by the context of what they're talking about.
Okay. Well, we're a couple minutes past time, but Dwayne, Dwayne, thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
We will take a couple of minutes and get reset for the 11 o'clock session.